Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we have some pretty big news to discuss. Nintendo has released the second trailer for The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which is titled Traversing Hyrule, and with it there's a whole bunch of cool new details, and from what I gather, it's looking like this game is even bigger than we thought. But even beyond that, there's also been some really cool new details that have been shown on the website as well. So we're going to be looking over it all, analyzing it, and breaking it down for today's video. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. So going through this trailer first here, the first cool thing we see is just our first look at the map of Hyrule. It's kind of blurry, we can't make out all the details yet, but very clearly we can see Hyrule in the middle of the map, and I'm just going to point out this little thing here. It's looking kind of like a heart-shaped pond, but we'll speak more on that a little bit later into this video here. So throughout the trailer, they show off different regions of Hyrule, and first here they're showing off the Gudo Desert. Now something that I think is worthy of note is that we have what appears to be a sand shark, and it's burrowing into the ground here. Now here we have a close-up of Princess Zelda in the desert area, and something I thought was worth noting is that we can see her heat exhaustion. It looks like her face is a little bit red and she's kind of trying to fan herself, and we even see drops of sweat coming down her face. That's some really cool attention to detail, I would say. Now here we see this enemy. It almost looks a little bit like a morph, but it's moving around like a spider, so I'm not sure what it is exactly. Maybe we've seen this enemy before, but yeah, we have these weird spiders with eyeballs. So here we have an oasis, which I think is worth noting because we also had an oasis in Breath of the Wild and Tears. And it just seems like the desert in Echoes of Wisdom actually has quite a bit of variety and scope to it. But a really cool thing that happens here, several cool things. Zelda creates an echo of a bed, and here we can see that the Gerudo warrior is shocked by this. So when you do weird things next to them, they will react, and I think that's another example of some great attention to detail in this game. But something else kind of cool happens here. Zelda just sleeps on the bed, which I think is very interesting because beforehand we weren't sure she could just sleep on the bed. She was using the bed as a bridge, a platform, so that she can build and walk on. But here she's using it to sleep on, which is kind of funny because that's the normal purpose of a bed, but it kind of suggests that with all the different echoes Zelda may be using throughout the game, they will have a variety of uses, and sometimes it may be just the normal intended use, and you can do it in different places. Now the question is this sleeping thing just there for aesthetics, or is it actually something of value where she can use it to rest and actually heal up her energy, her hearts? We're still unsure. Now we get a look at Jabul Waters, the water area of the game, where we have these Zoras. Here we see a Tektite, which is interesting to see them make their comeback. But something really cool that I'm already noticing here is these symbols on these platforms. It looks a lot like the water medallion from Ocarina of Time. But perhaps what's even more interesting here in this next little scene is this structure that's underwater here. That looks like the symbol for the water temple or the spiritual stone of the Zoras. Could this perhaps be an entrance to a water dungeon? Maybe. Even if it's not a dungeon, it's very clearly an entrance for one of the areas of the Sea Zora. So here we have confirmation of two different Zora types, which you already seen them, but now they're literally saying it in this trailer. There are the Sea Zora and the River Zora. And they have their own areas, so these huts are for the River Zora. Next we have the Kakariko Village by the Elden Volcano. And something that I think is kind of cool, that I just want to kind of point out, and just want you guys to keep in mind as we continue throughout this trailer, is that there are just different objects here that Zelda may be able to interact with. We see the chicken, so she may be able to grab the chicken and do things with the chicken as we've seen in different Zelda games, so there's that potential there. But also, there's this axe on this tree, and if this game is anything like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, as we have seen multiple signs of something like that, we should be able to grab and use this axe in some way. And then also there's this well here, there's a path leading up to the well, multiple paths, and there is a handle that looks like we can kind of lift and reveal what's under this well. So maybe there's a way to move this lid and do something there. Now we see the Goron area. We see these different Gorons. They look pretty cool. And this sort of design here reminds me a lot of the designs we saw in Breath and Tears of the Goron village. Here we see the return of the rock roasts, and the way it's sort of laid out here, I feel like we'll probably be able to grab these as well. So we have confirmation that this area with the tropical trees is the Faron region. It's being called the Faron wetlands, so it's wet. It's kind of like a rainforest or a tropical environment. I sort of understand where they're going with that, because we even have these cool parrots here. But also there are statues of Deku Scrubs. And there's just Deku Scrubs everywhere with all these different kinds of designs. And something else that's kind of neat is that it looks like they're adding a little bit of lore. I don't remember this detail being a part of these personalities of the Deku Scrubs, but it seems like that they're addicted to sweets. This part's pretty awesome as well. We have confirmation that there are quest updates for main quest and side quests, just like in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which I think goes to show just how much more there is to this game compared to prior games outside of Breath and Tears, where there is clearly a main quest and side quest system. It's organized very similarly to those games as well. You really feel the influence from Breath and Tears. But while we're on this scene right here, or this frame, notice this right here. It looks like a poster of Princess Zelda. Why is that? We'll speak more on that a little bit later. Here we see the menus of the side quests, as I was discussing. We can even see here that if there's a character that we need to speak on for some sort of quest, they will have some little blurb of text and a red exclamation point, which makes a lot of sense. Notice here that this pot has triangles around it. This might be the game signaling that you can turn this into an echo. Something I'm going to note here is just how the leaves, if you'll see as I move slowly, they are moving. So this is going to feel like a living, breathing world. A lot of attention to detail here. Here we have confirmation that these little structures that we discussed in our initial trailer analysis are indeed fast travel points for the game, which is great to see. We're going to need that to travel through the world quickly. Now, remember how I mentioned that heart-shaped pond? Well, looks like it is a heart-shaped pond, and Hyrule Castle's over here. We have a better look of the actual map. It seems pretty detailed. It even looks like it's sectioned off into different regions, so that is very curious. But what I find interesting is that maybe this is the same heart-shaped pond we saw in Breath and Tears of the Kingdom, which wasn't that far off from the Faron region. It was pretty close to it, and if we look carefully here, these trees look to be like the tropical trees, and we look to the other side of this mountainous wall, it looks to be like the more normal style of trees. And then over here to the left, this looks to be kind of like the desert area of the game. Going beyond fast travel though, we can see that Zelda can just jump off ledges, so she has some athletic ability here. But even crazier, it looks like horses are in this game, and yes, Zelda can ride them. And what you'll notice is that when she's riding them, the camera pulls out. We see more of the environment. Yeah, she can run through enemies, but also she can jump through ledges vertically. And that's something we've never seen in a 2D Zelda game, where you can jump on a horse and just scale things in that way. I really didn't expect that we'd be able to ride horses in this game, but the fact that we can, and we can use it in this way to move throughout the environment, I think it's going to make the flow of gameplay and movement just that much better, and it has me very excited. And we also can call them by using carrots as echoes, which is a nice little detail, but you'll notice here that this horse is not the same horse as before. This is a white horse. So I'm assuming that there are different types of horses that we'll be able to find. It's not just the one horse. We get an extended look at the return of the business scrub, and it looks like they sell smoothies this time. So from what we gather here, it appears that you will be gathering recipes that you can use to put together and drink different smoothies. And they will yield different stat bonuses. But also looks like we can buy different items to improve our stats. Here are the Zora flippers that will help Zelda to swim faster when she's wearing them. Here is the Zora Scale, a charm made via secret Zora methods that enables the wearer to hold their breath for longer underwater. We have the Frog Ring here, a ring imbued with the spirit of a frog, enables the wearer to jump higher, so there will be jumping, it's not just jumping down. Here's the Heart Pin, a hairpin with distinctive heart design. It makes hearts appear a little bit more often. Okay, that can make the game a little bit easier. So yeah, we can equip different accessories, but also clothing options as well. So that's pretty cool. Very much like Breath and Tears, where we can collect accessories and clothes that can help our stats and just allow us to customize and look cool or whatever suits our fancy. And here we see the reveal of a new ability, Bind. It's not just about creating echoes. So what's interesting here, it looks like at this point in the game, Zelda has yet to learn the ability. She has 5 hearts, and what's kind of interesting about this is that it may be implying that there is some level of linearity in this game where we don't get all the abilities right from the beginning area. And here we see a little cutscene where Tri is going to give her the ability to use Bind, which she can now use to move this giant boulder. And it has the green look, which reminds me of the Zonai abilities from Tears of the Kingdom, specifically Ultra Hand. You can pull out treasure chests. Perhaps this ability can also be used to open up the well we saw in Kakariko Village. We can use it to push down enemies, which is awesome. That's going to give her more options against all the sorts of different enemies that will be attacking her, even though she doesn't have her own sword. But it's not just Bind, but also Reverse Bond. And this allows Zelda to follow enemies or just rely on the abilities of the enemies. As you see, the bird is flying for Zelda. What I'm gathering here is that you press R when you're using Bind to use Reverse Bond. And that will allow you to use the spider in different ways. Either it controls you, like to climb here, or you move it around by pressing R. And what you'll notice here is that now there's a Y button command and an X button command. The Y button command, as we saw before, was for the echoes. This X one seems to be for the Bind option. Now here we see this cutscene showing off more of the rifts and enemies coming from it, and here we actually see what appears to be an important looking Gerudo, not just the Gerudo warriors. And it looks like it's blocking their way from progressing here. What's going on? There's even some other politics and also an other important looking Gerudo, perhaps the most important Gerudo here, perhaps the leader of them all. And I kind of get the sense that we're going to clear this area. We see kind of like this little gold circle here. I think we'll be entering that. And once we clear this area, we'll be able to explore more of the area later on. It's not confirmed yet though. However, we see this area here, which is just in the middle of Hyrule. It's not even like a normal town or anything like that. It's blocking the way. We can even see some areas of Hyrule behind this giant rift, and Zelda goes in here. So I do think it strongly supports the idea that we will be working to dispel the rifts. This might function like somewhat of a dungeon. And that's it for the trailer, but that's not all the details we've gotten, because there's even more on the website. So taking a look at the website here, some pretty cool details. We can see that the key art has been expanded to the sides. Here on the left, we can see this fellow flying around with a glider. Perhaps Zelda will be able to do something similar. And then here on the right, we can see a wanted poster for Princess Zelda a lot more clearly than beforehand. And I think this may explain for why Zelda was hiding around in the first trailer. But there's actually more details that are shown on this website on that. We'll get to that in a moment. But just scrolling through, we see that they opened up the website here on this date, the 5th, that's when we're recording this. But it also looks like they're hinting at more trailers to come soon. One for the story, one about wisdom, and one about the world, even more about the world. So they have a plan here. They have an outline of even more Echoes of Wisdom news as we approach release. So I'm looking forward to that, and we'll definitely be covering it here. But here we can just see a whole bunch of screenshots. A lot of this is what we've seen before, but there are some other cool things we haven't seen. Pretty cool stuff. The website will be linked in the description if you missed it and you don't know where to find it. Actually, this one's very cool. It's that boss, that golem boss. We see more of it there. We see the Gorons here. But we get our look at the king here. So the king is in this game. There's some cool things. There's a river town. I'm just seeing a lot of very interesting imagery here. But moving on, because there is a lot more. Here, with this trailer, it looks like something we've seen before, but just hold on a quick moment here. You're gonna see something that's definitely not normal. That's the king, pushing Zelda away to save her from the rift. So something happens to the royalty in this game during the expansion of the rifts. We see it covering Hyrule Castle. So this may help to explain what's going on and why Princess Zelda is hiding in the first trailer. She's going to have to kind of sneak around. That's why there's wanted posters. So Princess Zelda is going to be treated a little bit like a villain here. She's not actually the villain, but it looks like there's going to be some evil people in control. Scrolling through here, we see Zelda approaching a heart piece. We already figured you'd be able to do this because we saw a heart piece in the key art. But moving on, we see that she's using it to get different platforms. However, here, you'll notice something very interesting. The beds can break. They are being used as shields or protective walls against enemies. But they break down, so you have to keep that in mind. Here, there's a pot. You can throw it and break it like you can in prior games. However, you can also go inside of it and hop around to sneak around, or perhaps not burn yourself in hot areas. But also, look at this. You see the question mark from the enemy, or in this case, the knight. She's sneaking around because she's wanted. Something else I'd like to note is that it appears that you can even lock on to enemies as well. So this part's pretty crazy. This is very much like Breath of the Wild and Tears, or even that tech demo for a 2D Zelda that was a prototype for Breath of the Wild. So you can plant trees or put down the echoes of trees or bushes, things that would be flammable, and then you can bring out a torch or a lamp, and guess what? It all burns. So some pretty cool burning mechanics there, just like in the prior 3D Zelda games. So what I'm gathering from what we've seen so far of Echoes of Wisdom is that it has a lot of different mechanics and concepts that have been carried over from Breath and Tears. There's a lot of flexibility with how you progress and explore the world. They're introducing horses, they're pulling out the camera. There's an attention to detail with the characters. They are reactive, perhaps the environment is so as well. There's even some pretty cool physics at play, like with burning, which reminds me of that prototype that they initially used for 2D Zelda. And as we're seeing more of this game, it appears that there's a lot more to it. And yet, there are still plenty of questions that remain. But it looks like Nintendo will be giving us more news on Echoes of Wisdom pretty soon. Several times leading up to release. But what do you make of all these new details for Echoes of Wisdom? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.